Well, joining me now in Kabul is Ziaulhaq Amarkhil. He's a senior advisor to President Ashraf Ghani on political and public affairs. And also in Kabul, we have a former Afghan MP, Farkhunda Zahra Naderi. She was once an advisor to President Ghani, but is now a part of what Abdullah Abdullah calls his stability and partnership team. It's good to have you both on the Newsmakers. Farkhunda Zahra Naderi, if I can begin with you, ma'am. Is there any proof of fraud, or is this just a case of Abdullah Abdullah being a sore loser with a bruised ego?
Well, as you correctly mentioned, for the announcement of the election, it took the election bodies to announce it within 5 months. If there was not any case of fraud, they wouldn't extend it to that level. And at the same time, there were 300,000 votes that was not acceptable votes, and they were not legitimate votes. So out of that, 102,000 votes were out of the time of voting process. So it was very much clear to the whole country, the whole nation, that there were very high level of frauds. Actually, in the previous election, we also had a level of frauds. And a country that is moving towards democracy, it seems to be natural to make the steps towards democracy years by years to make the institution strong. But unfortunately, in this election, it was the worst election ever we had it. The election which was actually giving the worst signs of transparency was the parliamentary election. And people had hoped that presidential election will be an opportunity to build trust again to the institution, and people can come and vote. And one of the reasons that people didn't vote and the ceiling of the voting was not very high, because the parliamentary election, which were before the presidential election, actually discouraged the public, because Afghan people, when they go and they vote, it's not like a normal country that they just go and just give or invest their time. They also take the risk of their life to go and vote.
Okay.
So people were discouraged because of those reasons.
Okay.
One more point, in 2014, I was saying that Afghan institutions and Afghan democracy is a teenage. It's 14 years old. So give it some time that it can get better. So today, Afghan democracy is 18 years old. And 18 years old, Afghan citizens can go and vote and even determine the future of the country. So the expectation of this country, the citizen of Afghanistan, was higher from institutions and responsible people.
Farkhunda, you're going to eat up all the time in this segment. Yes. I've got to get Zia's perspective here. So that's the view from Abdullah Abdullah's camp. They're not happy. They've set up a parallel government, or they're in the process of that. And in his role as chief executive, they've barred the electoral official, the commission officials from leaving the country. Ziaulhaq Amarkhil, you've heard their argument. Are you willing to engage with it for the sake of peace?
Thank you very much. First, let me thank the TRT, and as well as, especially the participants, Ms. Zahra Naderi, for participating in this roundtable and discussing the Afghanistan election. Honestly, the 28th of September election was a big achievement for the people of Afghanistan and as well as for the democracy. It means the democracy was the win, and as well as the people of Afghanistan win this election. And we congratulate them. Plus, the 28th of September election, prior the election, there was a huge propaganda was going on that the election will not take place, even though there was a preparation for the election commission side, plus even the candidates was not a bit sure that the election will take place because the propaganda was going on. But thanks God, the election did take place and people did participate, and it was election that was across the country, and first time the election commission used technology in that election. And though there was some challenges, but it was overall a good election. It was acceptable election. The election commission is the body that they are legally is authorized to conduct the election, and legally the election commission is responsible to announce the final result and as well as to give accreditation to the winner candidate. The election commission announced the election and did give the accreditation to the winner candidate, which is Dr. Ashraf Ghani. It means the legal authority or the legal body is election commission. They conducted election, they announced the final result, and they did give the accreditation to Dr. Ghani. It means Dr. Ghani is officially is the president of Afghanistan.
Okay, Farkhunda, Zahra, Naderi, looking at it from the outside, you would accept that people see this at the same time as the Taliban agreeing this reduction in violence period with the United States that could hopefully pave the way to them putting down their guns. It's a bad time to have political disunity, isn't it? You would agree that people would say, well, how can you have peace with the Taliban if you can't have unity even among Afghan leaders? Do you accept that?
If you look at the current situation, the first thing that you see this political crisis, or whatever name you will give it to the country, the first evaluation that comes in your mind is there is not a good leader for 5 years who could unite Afghanistan and make it prepared for this upcoming peace process to go and sit around the table with Taliban. So the character who will take this responsibility will be the president of Afghanistan. Even if you go and look at the group during the campaign time, the Afghan political group isolated the ex-president of Afghanistan, Mr. Ghani, and they came and joined Mr. Abdullah, and the majority of them actually came. I always believe that, political refugees within the country is always natural because politicians can change their agenda and their position, and they can shift from one group to another. But to have it to that high level from president, one group joined the election and the rest of them, not one group actually, different group joined the election, and the one who didn't join the election and joined peace, they also don't have good relation with the president. So the ex-president of Afghanistan failed to exhibit leadership inside the country. When we come to the election, it is not only Mr. Abdullah who actually rejected the result of election. You can also see that different candidates like Mr. Hikmatyar, Mr. Nabil, and the rest of the candidates, they rejected that because the level of fraud was very high. And at the same time, allow me to just add this point, the process was not finished because 16,000 cases before getting finished after 5 months, all of a sudden, the commission were hijacked by a power, and they had to announce in favor of an individual, disregarding the whole legal structure and the votes that was given by the people during that time.
Okay, so let's take what you said here, because Zia, it's not only about the Taliban maybe exploiting your differences or exploiting the gaps of your differences, and this possibly leading to instability. Not only do you have 40% of people, even if the official results are to be believed, 40% of the people voted for Abdullah Abdullah, right? And now, as he contests it, you have major parties comprised of Uzbeks, Tajiks, Hazaras, and so on, backing Abdullah Abdullah, saying we don't accept Ashraf Ghani as our president. Something needs to happen here. Ashraf Ghani has to engage with these people, right? He can't just wish it away and say, I won, and shut his ears.
Yes, honestly, what happened, Perer, the election commission bodies, commissioners, and as well as the election complaint commission commissioner was supposed to be appointed by the president, but the president did not appoint them. It was more, like the candidates voted for them, and Dr. Ghani had only one vote. It means the election commission body in the election complaint commission body commissioner was appointed by the candidates. It means 2014, nobody should accuse the government and nobody should accuse Dr. Ghani that he did interfere. There was a zero interference from the government side, especially from the security organization. The only security organization was providing security to the election, and thanks God they did provide it. The second is that Dr. Abdullah, since he's accusing that this was not a good election, this is not the first time. He did it in 2009. He was accusing ex-President Karzai, and as well as he did accuse in 2014. It means like he had the same issue in 2014. This is not the first time. Every single Afghan know that he doesn't believe on election. He doesn't believe on democracy, and that's why every single time he's challenging the election. And plus, if you look to his background before 2001, most of like the warlords is just standing next to him, and now they're announcing the Pearl government. This time, the people of Afghanistan will stand, and the people of Afghanistan will support democracy, and the people of Afghanistan is supporting election. We have legally elected government, and the election commission is already announced the final result.
Okay, you're hanging a question mark over the credibility of those who are questioning the result. We're going to keep a close eye on this. We're going to invite you both back onto the program very soon as this story unfolds. I thank you sincerely for joining us on this episode of The Newsmakers.